I might start the formalities while we let some extra people in, but I wanted to welcome everybody to this edition of Portugal Calling by Expats Portugal. We're very, very excited to have you all here. My name is Astrid. I'm one of the directors at Expats Portugal. I'm originally from Australia and moved to Portugal in 2012. I spend my time between Sintra near Lisbon and our rural paradise, Castelo de Bide, which is what my background image is today. It's actually off Maval, where I'm staying this evening. So very, very lovely place. Everyone's going to be muted so that, but you can all hear. How we'll work today is you're going to, if you can send your questions via the chat function that you'll see in your box. But just please ensure that you send it to everybody so that everybody can see your question, so that there's no double up with people asking the same thing. We will be recording tonight's webinar, which will later go onto the Expats Portugal website as well as our new YouTube channel. So if you do want to remain anonymous, please turn your camera off, but we don't toggle around too much, so you probably won't be seen. But just in case you do want to remain anonymous, please feel free to turn that off. We'd love to know where everyone is from as well, so please put in the chat box where you're joining us from. We'd love to know. And I'll head over to introduce Jerry to do a little bit of an update on us.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Yes. Hello, and everybody, and a very warm welcome to our next webinar. With Astrid, and we are the directors of Expats Portugal, which was founded in 2005 as a community of people in a very friendly manner to give help and assistance to those people, expats who are already living in Portugal or those who are looking to move to Portugal. Astrid and I took over the site in September last year. And we've carried on the ethos of the original founder, Simon Powell, but we've also worked very hard to add a lot more information and a lot more value, and hence that quickly brings us to these webinars. It's my great pleasure tonight to introduce Dr. Daniel Reis of Reis Pellicano. Daniel is a founding member of Reis Pellicano. And tonight's event will be hosted by the excellent Carl Munson. And so without further ado, I'll hand over to him.
No pressure. Thank you, Jerry. Good evening, everybody. Can we have a little bit of a wave? Somebody had a dog here as well tonight. Hello.
Yes.
That was you, Ali, wasn't it? And lovely to see some familiar faces. These webinars have been a lot of fun so far. I'm especially interested in this one because this is a process I want to go through. So it's great to be talking to you, Daniel Reis, tonight. How are you, sir?
I'm quite all right, thank you. It will be a pleasure to speak to you about the Portuguese nationality and how can you obtain it, what are the prerequisites that you need to have, and how is the step-by-step until you become a Portuguese national and a holder of a European passport.
Perfect. That sounds wonderful. Yeah, so as we said in the Portugal Calling webinar, as we were promoting it, the who, the how, and the when. Can we start with a bit of background about you, Daniel? And we had a webinar with Gilda recently. What's your connection with AE? How does that work?
Well, I actually started working with EI, with Gilda, and that was my first job as a lawyer here in Portugal. And even when I was an intern, doing my internship here in Portugal, so I grew up as a lawyer inside EI, but we, as EI, the migration services does essentially visas and residency permits. After some time, we noticed that our clients were requesting additional services like nationalities, like services regarding real estate property here in Portugal. So me and Rodolfo, my business partner, we decided to found Reis Pellicano, our law firm, to attend to all the legal matters of our clients that we have inserted here in Portugal with visas or residency permits. And the requests came quite quickly, and we grew up in this last year and a half since we founded our law firm. So it's been quite a process, and we're very happy about it.
I'm sure, and I feel that the volume is growing. Right, that you're being
yes.
very busy at the moment.
Yes, yeah.
My line of questioning is a little bit predictable, I fear, because I tend to ask people what their typical day looks like in the office, but it's a really good introduction to how it works, how you work, and what you do. So, would you mind answering that? If you have a typical day, that is, what's it like?
Well, that's actually a good question. We do a lot of external services, like going to the conservatorios, to the registries here in Portugal, or going to SEF, or meeting clients outside of the office, or even inside of the office. So I cannot say that we have a typical day. It's quite common to everyone be outside of the office at the same time, or we just meet all of us at the office without expecting to. So it is quite busy, and sometimes the day passes along 10, 11 hours of work, and we don't even notice. So it's good.
10, 11 hours.
Yeah, that's our usual time that we spend working here at the office. So at least the partners, it needs to be done. So.
Wow. So we can see a very hard-working firm. There are people here tonight. 40 degrees in Las Vegas, on the way to 45. North Carolina, Virginia, Oregon, Canada. A few people from the UK, Germany, Czechoslovakia, Egypt. Amazing. Poland. People from all over the world tonight tuning in. What sort of trends are you seeing? Which countries are you seeing represented in the applications and the people who want help from you?
Well, it's usually either Brazilians that do descend from Portuguese, or that have their residency time here in Portugal for 5 years and then request a nationality, or a big community of people residing in the US that are descendants of Portuguese people, or even clients from South Africa. So these are the main countries that are targets. People from South Africa, USA, and Brazil. So usually the people from USA and South Africa do have a line of descent from Portuguese people. Brazilians, it will depend. Some of them are here with residency permits, and then they can request a nationality later on. And some of them do have Portuguese descent, a line of descent as well. And a big increase in the Sephardic Jew nationality, because as Spain changed their law last year, they were directed to Portugal because they could still request their nationality being of Sephardic origin here in Portugal.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Okay,
so Israel is on the rise. That was my point.
Sure. So that covers in some way the who, and you alluded to the residency part leading up to citizenship. Could you go into that a little bit deeper? Is Portuguese citizenship effectively open to everyone around the world? Could you address that whilst people begin to think about their questions now? So do get those questions in, folks. This is about you and your inquiries and what you need to know in your research. So do get those questions in. Daniel, and basically, can anyone come from anywhere around the world?
Yeah, we don't close doors to anyone. So as long as you have a reason to come to Portugal, and that'll be a residency visa, and later on a residency permit. So as long as the Americans say, you have the green card that will put you as a resident, a legal resident here in Portugal, and you don't have a criminal background, you can request a nationality later on. So the first prerequisite that you need to have is 5 years of continuous residency here in Portugal. As long as that criteria is met, then and you don't have a criminal background, and you pass a Portuguese exam on A2 level, then you can request a Portuguese nationality with considering a residency permit here in Portugal. Then, if, for instance, you have a grandfather or grandmother that is a Portuguese that was born in Portugal and that migrated to the US or South Africa, you can request the Portuguese nationality as well. That's another route. And that will come with presenting the birth certificates of the person requesting the nationality, of their parents, and then of the Portuguese grandparents. But with that route, you do need to display some connection to Portugal, and that connection to Portugal will need to be a strong one. So you need to come to Portugal often. You'll need to have some cultural ties to Portugal. But the law was changed this year, and we'll have some ease up of the cultural restrictions of the cultural proofs that you need to display very soon. So as soon as the law is approved, and we do have a new regulation that is coming with that law, then that nationality will become easier for people living in South Africa and in the US, because those are the ones that do feel more difficulties in providing cultural ties to Portugal.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And I'm just getting a sense there then that there is an open door.
Oh, yeah.
Would you care to make a sort of, more of a sort of political comment or a sense of the politics of Portugal? Is this a growing sense of energy that the government want to encourage more and more people to come? I mean, because I know there's, the population growth has been negative in the past, hasn't it?
Yes.
How do you see the political picture?
Well, I do see the political picture. That the trend is to ease up the prerequisites to be a Portuguese national. So when I started my profession, being a Portuguese national was more difficult than it is today, no doubt about it. So all the recent changes in the law were in the sense of having the nationality, the Portuguese nationality, available for more people and in a broader sense of things. So I do feel that the trend is to ease up the prerequisites and to make being a Portuguese national easier. But this comes with a cost, because they didn't put people in the services that could attend to all the processes or all the new processes in time. So about 10 years ago, you would expect to be a Portuguese national between 6 months and 9 months. I usually would say to my clients, it's almost the time for a baby to be born. So nowadays, it's quite more than that. It's between a year and a half and 2 years, because they simply didn't hire more staff, more people to attend to all the nationality requests.
Very interesting. Okay, governments do that for some reason, don't they? Change policy, but
Yeah.
not necessarily change infrastructure. Okay, well, we hope for an improvement in that.
Hopefully, yes.
Yes, we do have questions coming in, and obviously, you talk of prerequisites there, and one of the big ones for people is the language, and I suspect we'll come back to that in a little while, and people will be hoping for a relaxation around that, I suspect. However, Henry in the UK is asking, we're looking at buying a home in Portugal soon. We will not initially live there. Can we apply for residency before England leaves the EU, or will we need to be living and working there first? Does that make sense, and what would be your answer, Daniel?
It does make sense, but my advice would be to move to Portugal before the end of 2020. This is because at the moment, things are business as usual. So if you are a UK national and want to reside in Portugal, you just come. You will need to register in the municipality where you are residing, but it is a fairly easy process. And at the end of the day, you'll have a paper that will allow you to reside in Portugal for 5 years. But now with the UK exiting the EU, we actually don't know. And there is a big question mark up our heads regarding the UK status with Portugal and with the EU. I do think, and this is just an opinion, but I do think that Portugal will do a separate agreement with the UK because of our proximity, our joint history. And we do have a lot of UK nationals residing in Portugal. So I do think that will have some sort of an agreement for people that have invested in Portugal, that have homes in Portugal, for them to come freely to the country. But this is just an opinion. So if you want to move to Portugal, do it quickly. That's my best advice.
I think that's good advice, and I love the sound of your opinion on the picture going into 2021. And I have to say,
yeah.
UK people do need to realise how lucky they are at this stage, right? That they, to people who are outside the EU, it just looks so easy for British people before the end of the year, at least, to become residents, and we are very, very lucky in that respect, and I count myself among those lucky people. Okay, from Jen. Do wave, Jen, if you wish to. My question / problem, hello, Jen. I have all of my documents, including signed application form from the Portuguese consulate for dual citizenship, but I just need to know where to send and what the fees are. I've had a really hard time sending in the application for being a daughter of a father born in Madeira and grandparents both born in Portugal. So where should that money go? She wants part of the money.
Okay, well, if the consulate is not making your life easier, you can circumvent the consulate and send the application directly to the Conservatório de Registros Centrais. That is our main registry here in Portugal, and the address is in Lisbon. So that can be sent directly to Conservatória. There is a way of paying the fees online, and they do generate multi-bank reference, so a payment reference, but that is for people that have bank accounts in Portugal. So it is a bit difficult for someone that's outside of Portugal to pay those fees to the registry if you are sending the documents directly. If you are doing the process within the consulate, you can pay the fees to the consulate. They will accept money, but Conservatória does not accept money. So don't put money in the envelope, please. Don't deport with your money in that way. That will be a bad idea. But there is ways of paying online, although they are mainly directed to people that are in Portugal. So if you want to pay a multi-bank reference online, a payment reference online with an account outside of Portugal, I do reckon that will be quite difficult.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Would one solution be to have someone you trust in Portugal with a Portuguese bank account, and then they can pay it and you can pay them?
That's it. My advice would be that, because otherwise, all the solutions that they have usually are, or you pay to the consulate or you pay to the registry, but you need a way of paying that is a Portuguese way. So, or you have a multi-bank card, a Portuguese card, or you go to the post office here in Portugal and you pay to the post office. But unfortunately, the system is not well designed to program or to have it designed to people that live outside of Portugal to have an easy method of payment. So no credit card payments, no things like that, unfortunately.
Okay, maybe they'll stretch to an IBAN one day, perhaps. But Jen,
yeah.
Thumbs up from you if that helps. Has that answered your question? And I love your affirmational picture behind you. You're already sat in front of the Abril 25 bridge there.
Well,
or are you in California, maybe?
Jen just did a question here that if she could send the money to me. Well, I'll leave my email later on the comment box, and if you do have any questions or doubts, feel free to email me. I can address some specific situation later on with an email contact, okay?
That's tremendous. Thank you, Daniel, for that, for reaching out in that way. And of course, premium members of Expats Portugal do get a discount on your services, which I'll share all of a comprehensive list of your services later. But there is a discount worth knowing about. Only costs you €20 to join up as a premium member of Expats Portugal, and you'll get a discount on Daniel's. His eyes are watering already. You'll get a discount on his services as a premium member. Okay, this is a great question, actually. What are the advantages to getting a Portuguese citizenship over gaining nationality after long-term residency? So could you just keep renewing the 5-year cycle? And
yes, that's not a problem at all.
Right, okay.
Yes. It is not mandatory to someone to obtain the Portuguese nationality after the 5 years. You can have a lot of reasons why you don't want to become a Portuguese national. Let's say that your country doesn't allow dual citizenship. There's quite a lot of countries like that. Or for tax reasons, you don't want to become a Portuguese national. There is quite a lot of reasons why some people don't want to have dual citizenship. But at the end of the day, if you just want to renew your permanent residency permit every 5 years, it's totally all right. You only request the Portuguese nationality if you want to. No, we don't push the nationality into no one. That's basically it.
That's really good. I mean, that's real flexibility for people, isn't it?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
for me, I was just, yeah, I'd love to become a citizen, but obviously, for the reasons you stated there, people don't necessarily want to do that. Thank you for that question, Amanda. Motaz now asking the question: do the full 5 years need to be spent in Portugal of the residency, or up to a specific amount of days per year? Another excellent question, Daniel.
It is quite a good question. If you stay 6 months in a day, that's the baseline, you will carry on renewing your residency permit. So as long as you stay in Portugal for a total of 6 months in a day, even if it's not all at once, if you go outside the country for 1 or 2 months, you get back to Portugal, then you go abroad again, you will keep on renewing your residency permit. But let's say that something happened in your life outside of Portugal and you needed to travel back to South Africa because your mother got sick and you needed to provide assistance to the family. You can stay outside of the country for a period longer than those 6 months in a day. But when you go and renew the residency permit, you will need to justify to SEF what were the reasons why you stayed outside of Portugal. And if you can document that and it was a valid reason, then the residency permit will be renewed, although with some work. We have had cases like that to renew the residency permits. We had some extra work. We needed to explain the situation, document really well the situation, but SEF took the time necessary to analyze it. But after all, they renewed the residency permit and they did understand that that person was outside or for work reasons or for family reasons or for any other important reason. So SEF is flexible on that situation. But if you do request a residency permit but decide to live outside of Portugal, in Dubai, for instance, and you don't have a valid reason for that, then SEF will stop renewing your residency permit later down the line, and you will not be able to access the nationality.
Which is fair enough, isn't it? But clearly, again, some excellent flexibility there from the Portuguese government. And a thumbs up from Motaz. So I think we've dealt with that question there. I'm seeing those two, the letter and the number coming up, A2. I think people are a little bit anxious about this, Daniel. As we spoke earlier, you thought this would be a thing for people. Let me just take in a couple of questions about this, and loads of questions. So everybody, please give me a chance to catch up a little bit. I began learning Brazilian Portuguese to converse with my uncle. Will I have to pass? Will I have to alter my language learning to pass the A2 level requirement? Let me add to that. Regarding the A2 exam from Alison, I have heard some people say that if they cover 150 hours of learning with a recognized learning provider, they don't have to sit the exam. Do you know anything about this, or do we have to sit the exam? Please address our anxiety about the language, Daniel.
Well, the exam needs to be passed, and you need to have a proof of language skills. And the exam is fairly comprehensive. It analyzes and it sees what is the Portuguese level on the written aspect, on the listening aspect, and on the conversational aspect. So you do need to sit the exam to analyze all the questions to answer. So not only you need to have a fairly good Portuguese on the conversational level, but you do need to interpret and understand Portuguese on a good basis. So the exam is not an easy one, but it's not the end of the world. It's not that difficult. My best advice is, if you do live in Portugal, For the majority of cases, I do presume that you do live in Portugal. You should start speaking with your Portuguese friends in Portuguese. You should start speaking with your neighbors in Portuguese. Once you go to the store, do the effort of speaking Portuguese, because those 5 years that you do spend here, if you only connect with expats, you will only speak English. That's normal. It's the usual situation. But if you do connect with the Portuguese population, and if you force yourself to speak Portuguese, if you listen to the Portuguese news, if you buy the newspaper and try to read Portuguese, you will end up on the end of the 5 years with a fairly good Portuguese level that can lead up to facing the exam with no extra classes. But if you do feel any additional difficulties, then go and have some Portuguese classes. Do your best to learn the language, because otherwise it's going to be difficult to pass the exam.
Fair enough, Daniel. So Ali, sorry, you've got to do the exam.
Yeah.
And there is no shame. There is no shame in watching Portuguese children's TV. That's one of my methods.
Yeah.
I would maybe we should do these webinars in Portuguese. Only kidding. As for Michelle Miller's question, who began conversing in Brazilian Portuguese, she's asking, will I have to alter my language learning? I would have thought not, right? If you're
no, not at all. And there is even an agreement that people that come from countries that do speak Portuguese, like Brazil, Angola, Mozambique, countries like that, they do not need to pass the Portuguese exam, and that makes sense. So there is an agreement with the what we call the Portuguese Commonwealth, the Portuguese-speaking countries, that if you come from one of those countries, you don't need to pass on the Portuguese exam. If you are a foreigner learning Portuguese from Brazil, that's not a problem at all. The evaluators from the exam will have that into consideration, and as long as it's Portuguese, they'll be all right with it.
That's wonderful. A relief, I'm sure, to
Yeah.
Michelle there. From A. Aranjo, can you explain a bit more what constitutes cultural ties, please, Daniel? My grandparents emigrated from Portugal many years ago, and I've no connection to any relatives there, but I have been to Portugal many times over the years. So, yeah, could you expand on the cultural ties part?
Yeah, that is one important part for people that live abroad and that have a Portuguese grandfather or grandmother. So the first thing that I want to point out is, for people that have a Portuguese grandparent, they don't need to display any proof of language skills. So no need to pass on the exam. That's only for people that have the route of 5 years of residency here in Portugal. Regarding the cultural ties, well, you can enroll yourself in Portuguese clubs that are in your residency area. Usually people that come from, that have a Portuguese grandfather do tend to reside in areas that have Portuguese clubs around. So if you live in Montreal, you have a lot of Portuguese clubs. If you live in New York, you have a lot of Portuguese clubs. Or if you live in Rio, as a Brazilian, there is a lot of Portuguese clubs that you can enroll. So that part would be the first situation that I would cover. I would look into Portuguese associations around your area where you reside. I would enroll and I would start participating in those activities. So not only you should enroll in the clubs and have a proof of that enrollment, as well as to participate frequently in those activities. The second part would be Portugal itself and the connection to Portugal. So I would come to Portugal at least once a year to spend holidays, and I would open here a bank account. I would obtain an if possible, have property purchased here in Portugal, or a rental agreement, something that has a legal tie to Portugal and that can show that you are really interested in the country. So, and that connection needs to be at least 5 years old. So it's not something that you build in 6 months. It's something that you need to display when you present your nationality request that has a long history, in this case 5 years. So this can be programmed, this can be done with time time. It will not be done all at once, and it is not one single element that will provide a connection to the Portuguese culture and to Portugal. It's the assembly of all the elements that will provide solid evidences of connection to Portugal, and the more the merrier. So that's basically it's not one single element, but a lot of them to demonstrate that you do know how the Portugal works, how the culture works, and that you come often to Portugal.
Wonderful. This is great, Daniel. Thank you so much. We're just over halfway through, so keep those questions coming in. And yeah, I mean, it just makes sense, doesn't it, to show as much interest as possible if you're applying for citizenship. Of course,
yeah.
You know, what you want to be immersing yourself and showing a passion for
That's
Portugal. To Josh now, originally from Colorado in the States, living in Lisbon for almost 2 years with wife and 2 kids. This question revolves around the process for children. I understand that nationality requirements for children have recently been loosened to afford children living in Portugal for 1 year, down from 2 years. The ability to apply for citizenship in that case, is that accurate, first of all?
Well, what is the law now is 2 years. So if when your children is born in Portugal, of course, and you have a residency permit for 2 years, you can request a Portuguese nationality for the child. But the criteria was indeed loosened with this new law. Let's see how the regulation works out, because until the regulation comes out, I cannot put my hand in fire for this. So, but it was indeed loosened. But last time when they changed the law, the regulation took almost 1.5 years to be publicized. So let's see how long will it take. And if you are planning to have children at the moment, if you could just wait until you have 2 years of residency, that would be stellar. That would be perfect, because if you could just wait, because with the law nowadays it's 2 years. With the future law, it's supposed to be 1 year, but until it's a final law and an approved law, let's wait and see.
Amazing. So family planning advice as well from Daniel there. Perfect.
Yeah.
My youngest son was born here. And this connects with Josh's question. So how does that affect your application for citizenship as a parent if your child has already gone through that process in the way you've just described or is born here?
Well, it actually doesn't affect your nationality process, because you still need the 5 year at the end of the day. But I would, if I was doing the application for the nationality, I would put a copy of the children's citizens card in your application to demonstrate that you have one extra connection to Portugal. Although it's not necessary to the application itself, I do think it's one extra touch that will be well looked into by the people seeing your application in Conservatoria, in the registry.
Great. Okay. Notwithstanding your earlier comments as well. Okay. I think we've answered your question, Jeremy. If we haven't, do please ask again about the 5 years part of the process. And from Karen here, this is possibly a little bit complex. So let's work our way through this. I live and work in England, married to a Portuguese national. We have a house. I'm applying for a Portuguese citizenship, says Karen. Until I gain citizenship after Brexit, can I hold a temporary residency in Portugal, as I want to be able to travel to Portugal freely, but I want to still work and pay tax in England?
Okay. They are residing in the UK at the moment, correct?
It sounds right. That sounds right. Yeah, live and work in UK.
I'm not seeing the question. I'm trying to go up and see that question, that specific question.
John, it's the one after where Jen offered to send you some money.
Fair enough. Well, let's start with the following. If you register yourself as a UK national here in Portugal, you should declare to the Portuguese taxman that you are residing here. So the two things do come together. And if you don't, later on, you may have some problems that the Portuguese taxman can request the taxes from the last 5 years since you became a UK national residing in Portugal. So I would not advise to have what we call a dual fiscal residency, because that's not allowed. And at the end of the day, you may end up with a mess of having to pay taxes in the UK and having to pay taxes in Portugal. So I would not follow through with that situation. But if you want to register yourself as a UK national that want to reside in Portugal, that's fairly easy to do. But you may end up with the risk of Portugal, of the Portuguese taxman putting you as a fiscal resident and requesting you the taxes from the last 5 years, and that's not something that I think you should go through.
Okay,
yes.
Okay. How difficult, from Kate now? Thank you for that, Daniel. And hopefully, if you need any further information on that, Karen, do let us know. Kate says, how difficult is it to get US Portuguese dual citizenship in reality, I guess? So on paper, it's one thing. In reality, and in your experience, Daniel, the US used to be difficult about dual citizenship. I am the future wife and long-term partner of a British citizen. So we are moving to Portugal together by exercising his right to move freely to the EU until, of course, the 31st of December 2020. So in your experience, dual citizenship for US Portuguese?
It is possible, but the U.S. taxman was quite a clever in the system that they devised. So even though you can have Portuguese and U.S. Dual citizenship, the U.S. taxman will still want you to pay taxes in the U.S. So that's the main difficulty. The second one, sometimes, as odd as it may be, is to obtain the U.S. criminal record, because it's really an archaic system that you need to collect your fingerprints and send it to the FBI, even though there is the possibility of using a channeler, and with the channeler will be quite fast, but sometimes the fingerprints cannot be read. You need to take your fingerprints 3 or 4 times at the consulate, and that does slow down the process of obtaining nationality. So it is possible, dual citizenship between the US and Portugal. That's no major hiccup, but one of the factors is obtaining the criminal record. Sometimes it can be a breeze in 1 week is issued. Sometimes it can take quite a lot of months. So we've even had a client that the fingerprints were not read at all with the FBI system, and she could not issue the criminal record, period. And they would not issue the criminal record. They say that they don't do any searches by name, only by fingerprints, and that's amazing to me. It's the one and only country that I see that happening, to be honest. So, but it's possible, it's doable. The tax is something to have into consideration. The FBI criminal report is the other one.
That's extraordinary. Okay, so it does sound like the British route might be easier than the US route for you there, Kate. Acronym alert, please identify, says
SEF. SEF, yeah.
What does that stand for, Daniel?
It's in Portuguese, and I'll say a big word in Portuguese is Serviço de Estrangeiros e Fronteiras, and this means the Border Patrol Police of Portugal. So it's the same thing as the Border Patrol in the US, or the Home Affairs. I think it's Home Affairs in the UK, isn't it?
The Home Office. The Home Office.
Home Office, yeah, that's it. It's the Home Office in the UK. So it's the Border Patrol Police that issues residency permits and that analyzes the visas in Portugal.
Okay, brilliant. SEF, that's what it stands for. And I won't try and repeat that. I was born in France, says Suzanne, but a US citizen. Is it necessary for my birth certificate to have an apostille? And now,
yes.
to my embarrassment, I don't know what that means, Daniel. Could you tell me?
And then it is quite an important detail for everyone that wants to request nationality here in Portugal. 2 things that are really important: documents obtained outside of Portugal that are, for instance, birth certificates, criminal records, to be valid internationally and thus to be valid in Portugal do need to have the apostille beforehand. And the apostille is put on the document on the country of origin. So if you obtain a FBI criminal record and you send it to Portugal, you cannot apostille the document in the US embassy here in Portugal. Only in the country where the document was issued, it is possible to apostille it. And that apostille, basically, it puts international validity into the document. And it is a way of the state that issued the document conferring that that document looks looks the part. It is the usual document that is presented by the authorities in that place. So it confers international validity. The second detail, very important detail, is that even though there is an article in the law that states that documents written in English, Spanish, and French should be accepted by the Portuguese authorities here. But the law was not well devised, and what the law states is only if the employee understands those languages. So the employees always say, we don't understand it, please have the document translated. It's basics of the registries here in Portugal. So everything should be translated into Portuguese. But my big advice is that the translations are done either in Portugal or in the Portuguese consulate of the country that you live, because Portuguese translations done outside of Portugal usually are not accepted by the registries, or they do request the apostille in the translation. So it's one extra document, it's one extra cost. And my advice, and what I usually deal with my clients, is please send me all the documents, have them scanned. I will contact our partners that usually do translations. We send all the documents to be translated while they are being shipped to Portugal. Once they arrive, I have everything ready. The translations from the translated company and the documents, the original ones, to deliver to the registries. So that's my strongest advice. Every document that you deliver to the registries does need to have the apostille, otherwise it's not considered valid for Portugal, and have the documents translated or with the consulate or the country that you are living on, or by someone here in Portugal.
Tremendous. Thank you, Daniel. I hope that helps Suzanne. I suspect it does. Great. People are still anxious about the language part. And here's a really great question from Astrid, actually. Does this language criteria even include those who apply for seeking citizenship through marriage? So this is
no, it doesn't.
Wow. So one way of Astrid's hands go in the air, and this is another good reason to marry someone Portuguese.
Yeah, I hope I brought some relief into the situation. Having an exam, a Portuguese exam for someone that is married to a Portuguese person is not a mandatory prerequisite. So all the foreigners that are married to Portuguese people, rest assured you will not need to take the exam. You will not need to have Portuguese classes. It is presumed that by being married to a Portuguese citizen that you will have learned some of the culture and that you have learned some of the language. So that is not a situation that you should worry about. The people that need to pass the exam are the ones that have a residency permit and live here for 5 years. The rest, they will not need to pass on the Portuguese exam, although one of the Portuguese ties that we spoke of earlier can be Portuguese classes, can be Portuguese exams done in other institutions that not the ones that do the A2 level. So if you had some Portuguese classes, it's always good to have those documents in hand to deliver to the registry once the nationality is requested.
Fantastic, Daniel. Sorry, I laughed there because I just read something that Alison wrote in the questions there. Mm-hmm. And obviously we need to explore on Expats Portugal the like a dating aspect to so that people can marry. I mean, people are obviously thinking this, aren't they? They're thinking to themselves, well, do I want to go to language classes, or should I just marry a Portuguese person? I'm sure that's not just going through my head, which then leads to, is polygamy legal in Portugal? I know this is
no.
Okay, so let's deal with that. No, you can't take an
I saw that. I saw that. I found it quite funny, but it's not something legal in Portugal. And that is something, once you want to marry a Portuguese citizen, that you do need to display evidence of, if you are married, if you have another marriage registered or not. So unfortunately, polygamy is not a route to obtain nationality.
You could lobby the government, Alison, but maybe just go to
Yes.
Portuguese classes. 9 years. I speak Portuguese with my neighbours every day, but I know someone who sat the A2 exam who was a lawyer in the UK, and he said the exam was harder than sitting for the bar. I'm sure that's an exaggeration. It's almost A-level standard. Now, we need to do something to allay people's fears about this. I'm thinking we need a language club as part of Expats Portugal. How about that, Jerry and Astrid? We should have a weekly group where we polish our skills, I think. Okay, I think we've thoroughly dealt with that. So we've looked at how and who. Presumably, you don't wait 5 years and then the day after that, you then apply for citizenship. How do you manage that process when people want to do that with you, Daniel?
Well, we usually do start preparing the nationality process before the 5 years do come up. So let's say that you are in the 4 years and a half mark. In my opinion, that would be the time to start preparing the situation or the application. This is because for someone that has lived 4 or 5 years abroad their home country, it is difficult to request a criminal record. So I would prepare everything necessary to request a criminal record outside of the country. Some countries do allow you to request a criminal record with the embassy here or with the consulate, but not all of them do. For instance, UK doesn't allow you to request a criminal record here in Portugal. The US doesn't allow you to request a criminal record. What else? South African embassy doesn't allow you to request a criminal record, if my memory stands correct. So this does need to be prepared, and this usually passes by providing a power of attorney to someone of your confidence in the country that you have a nationality. But there is an important situation that I'd like to cover as well for the criminal records. If you have lived in another country for more than a year since you are 16, you should have a criminal record of that country as well. So this may be one extra document that you should be aware of. And as we are speaking about or speaking to a group of expats, multi-country is something that we see quite often. People have lived in 4, 5, 6 different countries, and at the end of the day, they will need to provide those criminal records to deliver to the registry. And the other situation that needs to be covered is the passport, if it's valid for more than 6 months or not. So renewing the passport may be something that we need to prepare before the application is submitted. So my advice is prepare on the 4 years and a half mark, because once you reach 5 years and 1 day, you can submit the application and just be rest assured that everything is covered beforehand. Otherwise, if you just start preparing on the 5-year mark, that will push the date of your citizenship later on, and that's not necessary. So preparation of 6 months in advance, it is a good advice.
Great. Okay. Excellent. And just want to say for a moment, because we've only got 9 minutes left. That has rattled by at great speed. We've covered a lot of ground. You've been amazing, Daniel. Just want to say a little bit about your company, Reis Pellicano, the international lawyers boutique, multicultural and multidisciplinary law firm. Nearly said that right. Your practice areas are the golden visa, real estate law, tax law, Portuguese citizenship. Obviously, we're talking about that now. Contracts, regulatory and compliance, foreigners law, labor law, and corporate law. That's a lot of areas. And as I said before, premium members of Expats Portugal can get a discount on your services. I'm also aware that we have 47 unanswered messages. And this is looking like we need to do a part 2, I suspect. I do hope we've given enough general information to satisfy people. And I'm sure some people won't have had the specific questions answered. But you're available, right? People can make a direct inquiry to you. What's the best way to do that?
Well, I would say via email because it's easier to have the information centralized via email. I can leave my email contacts here, and I do think you can post it on the forum and on Facebook. But my email is daniel.reis at Reis Pellicano, the name of the company, .com. I will insert it here on the chat, and feel free to email me if you do have any questions, doubts, or situations that I may clear out.
Great, and it's been.
I think Gilda just inserted my email. Yeah,
you did, and
so
she also says that you're still single, which is interesting. That would be another route, wouldn't it? So, and you get excellent service, obviously, with citizenship, and you wouldn't have to learn the language. Fantastic. Trisha says. Just want to make sure Daniel addresses my question from before. We applied for nationality a year ago and are still waiting for word of this. Our lawyer says we just have to wait. So this is difficult for people, isn't it? Just having to wait.
Yeah.
Is there any way to check
is.
the status of applications online, or any way of doing it?
The registry done the situation quite recently, and they have devised a system that you can check your application online with a code. So my best advice is to contact my colleague that is assisting you with the case, request the access code to the nationality, and then you can see all the 7 stages of the process, and you can get some direct feedback from the registry. And that code is with my colleague for sure if he has applied for the nationality for a year. And usually nationalities nowadays have been taking for 1.5 years until 2 years. So I do know it's a long time, but as I said in the beginning, the services are completely overwhelmed. They don't hire new staff, and the queue just got longer because the ease of access to the nationality is greater than before. So the sum of all the situations is, instead of having a nationality in 9 months, it's almost 2 years.
Amazing. So the heat really is turning up for moving to Portugal.
Yeah.
In this last 5 minutes or so, is there anything you think, Daniel, that we haven't addressed so far that's an important point to include?
Well, I do think that people that want to request a Portuguese nationality should plan ahead, should have legal counsel with a lawyer that they trust, because it is a process that does take time, as we talked before, and it is a process that with a document that is not with apostille, for instance, it can delay the process 6 months, a year or more, because what happens is once the person responsible for the registry analyzes the process and sees one single thing wrong, they'll put the process apart, they'll do a notification, and it will just go to the pile of unsolved cases. But if the application is well drafted, if everything is in the correct order, things will be speedier, and when the process or when the people from the registries process the application, at the end of the day, if nothing is wrong, they'll just accept the application, put the stamps on it, and agree of putting that person into the Portuguese registry and becoming a Portuguese national. So my advice is to search experts in the area, do contact with professionals that you feel comfortable with, and have the application well delivered, because you only have the opportunity of doing a good presentation once. Once the application has something wrong, then you'll need to address the situation, and you'll need to send more information to the registries, and that will slow down the nationality process.
Okay, and on a practical level, thank you for that. The exams, the presentation. How many centres are there around Portugal where you go and present yourself and make the application? Is that easy, or is that quite a big sort of 2 or 3 days?
It all depends.
Okay.
It will depend on the nationality that you are requesting. A lot of them are only exclusive for the central registries here in Lisbon. But some of them, if you are, for instance, a direct descendant of a Portuguese person, if your father or mother are Portuguese, you can request a nationality in any registry of the country. But if, for instance, you only have a Portuguese grandfather and you are requesting the nationality with the Portuguese cultural ties, that nationality can only be presented in the central registry. So it will actually depend on the typology of nationality that the person is requesting. And we do know this, and we try to direct the nationality procedures to the place where it's more speedier. We sometimes deliver nationality processes in the north of the country because the registries are not so overwhelmed as the Lisbon one is.
Okay, so it's looking, for most people, it's looking like a nice trip to Lisbon.
Yes, the majority, I would say, it will be in Lisbon, but some of them can be delivered outside of Lisbon. But to be honest, the nationality process can be requested all at a distance. It will depend on the type of nationality that we are speaking of, but for some of our clients, we don't even see them face to face because the full process can be done at a distance.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Yeah. So practical help from around the fingerprint thing, which just seems extraordinary, doesn't it? The fingerprint business. Tanya C says, and this I think applies to the question you asked, Suzanne Harris, for fingerprints, criminal records. I just sent mine to Canada today. There are many companies that digitize ink fingerprints for a cost, of course. I'm sure a Google search would bring up American companies to do the same. So there is help at hand, pardon the pun there, with your fingerprints. And lots of thank yous coming in. So I think we should conclude there. And Daniel, you've been amazing. Lots of thanks coming in from Nina, from Jeff. Tanya saying she's learned a lot tonight. And yeah, thank you so much. And I'll hand back to Astrid and or Jerry to tell us about the next webinars. And I suspect give further thanks to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. That was amazing. Just going to touch base about a couple more webinars that we have coming up. Next Thursday, the 27th of August, next Thursday or the Thursday after? Next Thursday, we're going to have our first social catch-up. So if you want to just come on board and chit and chat to people who have made the move or planning on making the move and just have a social gathering, please come on board. We will find that in the Expats Portugal calendar. Then put in your diaries on the 3rd of September, we have an amazing webinar with Peter from enjoyportugal.com, all about how to buy or rent property in Portugal. So that's another informative one for those wanting to buy, and then they can come to you, Daniel, with all their real estate law.
Yeah, it'll be my pleasure.
That's great. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Jerry, have you got anything else to say?
No, just to add my thanks to everybody and to Daniel and Carl for an excellent job tonight. Thank you all very much.